of Tanzania's development trajectory over the last 45 years or so. And for those who are interested in a longer presentation, I'll do it in January, on January 20th, 2021. So for those who understand Swahili, I'll be making a lot of use of Masudi Kipanya, who's a famous cartoonist in Tanzania. I've been using him in a lot of my writing because I believe he captures concisely the historical trajectory of Tanzania over the years. Of course, they are cartoons, so sometimes they are satirical. They may not exactly reflect what is happening, but for people who can decode them, they can really, really help you make sense of what has been happening. What is important is always to look at the years in which he produced or published his cartoons. So as I tend to look at Tanzania in terms of different epochs, and for the purpose of this presentation, probably the most important epochs is the pre-colonial, colonial, and post-colonial epochs, as well as the socialist vis-a-vis what has come to be known as post-socialism. And this is in reference to the policy that the first president of Tanzania, Mwalimu Julius Nyerere, implemented systematically from 1967, roughly to the time when he stepped up in 1985. And then I also tend to look at it in terms of what I call watersheds. So these are some key events that has been happening over the years. And for the purpose of this presentation, I think the key watershed is the Arusha Declaration on Socialism and Self-Reliance in 1964, which set the Tanzanian path toward socialist-oriented policy vis-a-vis capitalist policies. And then we know the crisis that occurred in the beginning of the mid-70s that went all the way to the 80s and led to the structural adjustment programs. The first one was an inward structural adjustment program that Nyerere and his government attempted to implement in order to deal with the crisis. But later on, it succumbed to the structural adjustment program from the international financial institutions such as the IMF and the World Bank. And this culminated in what has come to be known as the Zanzibar Resolution or Zanzibar Declaration, which in a way buried some of the key tenets of the Arusha Declaration on Socialism. And then in relation to this, you'll see that there have been significant legal reforms over the years, which reflect some of these changes that have been happening in terms of the policy and the politics of the country. As you can see from this, from 1967 all the way to early 1980s, you can see those are some of the laws that were more or less associated with the socialist policy. And the one in 1983, the Economic Sabotage Act, in a way was a reaction to what was happening at that time when people were hoarding, business people were hoarding a lot of goods in the context of a shortage of goods during that particular crisis that I've referred to. And in a way, that was the way the government attempted to deal with them. But then after that, as I said earlier on, Tanzania went on to the path of neoliberal reforms associated with structural adjustment programs and poverty reduction policies. And you can see the laws that came to be implemented from 1990 onwards. They were all geared toward setting Tanzania into the path of a liberalized market economy, as well as financial capitalism. And then in connection to these laws, we also had institutional reforms. And you can see the institutions that were formed in the late 60s all the way to the 70s, they were tied to the state's attempt to build a socialist society. But then starting from the 1990s, you are seeing all these institutions, both in the private sector and the public sector, coming up to reorganize the state and the society alongside capitalist economic development. A lot of people like to analyze this economic or historical trajectory of Tanzania in relation in relation to what we call the phases of governments, and this is in line with the president that we've had over the years. So we've had 5 presidents, and at the moment we have what we call the fifth phase government. And if you look at the data, probably most of you are aware now, Tanzania is really, at the moment, it's a government that is really monopolizing the process of producing data and sharing data. So it's very difficult for private citizens or private organizations to come up with national data. So most of this data that I'm using here are from the state itself, from the National Bureau of Statistics, which is a public entity. So if you look at the recent data, for instance, these are the data on food poverty and basic needs. And you can see the story is a story of a downward trend when it comes to these forms of poverty. And it's an attempt to show that the story has been more or less a story of success across the phases, especially the 5th one. You can see the first one is omitted. One of the reasons they gave is because the data were not yet collected along these similar kind of patterns. But again, when you really look at the discourse that is happening in Tanzania now, it's a discourse of success across these 5 regimes. And as you can see, this is also reflected critically, albeit critically from Masudi Kipanya's cartoons, where he's showing some of the promises that have been made over the election, during the elections years. So we normally have the election years like in 2005, 2015, and now 2020. Yeah, so those are some of the critiques from Kipanya on all these measurements that have been used to indicate that poverty has gone down, especially the measurements on GDP and income poverty. And here, I decided to pick a couple of cases on social services because I think your organization is more concerned with some of these with these services. And as we know, the basic one is education, water, and health. So this is a very recent report again from the government. It came out this year, even though it's a report on a study that was conducted in 1988, to 2018. And you can see, for instance, this is a percentage of schools with electricity in Tanzania. You can see Dar es Salaam, the commercial capital, the percentage is very high, 94. But when you go to regions that have got a high population of rural people, especially poor rural people, you see the rate is the percentage is very low. Like Hilden in the south, you'll see is 49.2. Of course, in Mtwara, the number is a little bit high and probably is associated with the gas that is produced there. So probably they're using it for electricity. That's something I have to follow up. But you can see the dichotomy. If you go to Shinyanga in the lake region, 27.5 and so forth. And you can see when you move to the water services, the story again is more or less the same, but even worse. The commercial capital Dar es Salaam is no longer the 90 plus that we saw when it came to electricity. Now it's 68. And if you go to Lindi, it's 48. That is basic water services. If you go to Simiyu, which is a relatively new region, 33.5 along the lake zone. So the story is not as rosy as some of the macroeconomics indicators indicate. Now, when we come to basic sanitation, you can see again, in the case of Lindi, it's 23.6. That's a very, very low percentage. Dar es Salaam, again, 57.2. If you go to the capital, like the political capital of the country, Dodoma, is 18.6. Of course, it's an arid area, but still, that is an indication that some of these basic services, the provision is very low. If you go to Katavi and Rukwa, it's even like worse. Rukwa is 4.4. And then you can see it's more or less the same story when you come to basic hygienes. And then when you move to the statistic on health and education, You can see we've built a number of hospitals across the years, but we're talking about a population that is now about 55 million people. So these facilities are still not enough. And the same story goes on to education. And the structure of the economy of Tanzania historically has been based on agriculture, but there's been movement toward the industrial sector. And as well, the service sector is almost organic, but the state is trying to focus so much on the industrial sector. But still the largest population in Tanzania is based in the agricultural sector. And again, there's been a lot of consistency and contradictions within the fifth phase government that some people try to compare to the first government of Mwalimu Nyerere. But what you can see is that the current government is really, really not a socialist government, at least in its rhetorics and even practice. Is still interested in the private sector, even though some members of the private sector don't feel that it is really, really working very well with them. As you can see that cartoon from Kipanya, he's trying. It's a very recent cartoon. He's trying to show the current state of the private sector in Tanzania. But again, the current president seems to be very committed to industrialize the country, and has been having some support from some of the what I call intellectuals of capital in Tanzania. Some of them published that book that had a whole forward by the president. And the government is also using the mining sector as one of its trump card to show that it is really producing a lot of revenues, especially gold. As you can see, the trend has been going upward according to their statistics. And this is in a way due to some of the reforms that the current president has been implementing. So Tanzania, to sum up, is really a country at a crossroad between its socialist legacy and its attempt to move toward a fully fledged capitalist-oriented or market-oriented economy. And that's a quote from the first president of Tanzania, was a critique of a society that creates millionaires and billionaires. But the current president is really focused on creating billionaires, at least from his recent speech when he was opening the parliament of Tanzania.
Kuwekeza hapa nchini kwa kuogopa kusumbuliwa na maswali yasiyo na msingi. Tunahitaji kuwa na mabilionea wengi wa Kitanzania.
Yeah, so that was the president recently, and so what are the prospects? So the prospect really, from my understanding, is that Tanzania is, for a long time, is going to be this kind of a dual, almost dialectical kind of society, trying to balance the socialist legacy, Ujamaa legacy, socialist legacy, and this capitalist orientation that is going on. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Chambi. That was absolutely fascinating. So that was really a taster for the event on January the 20th, which is going to be a lot more in depth, where people will have a chance to ask questions and so on. So thank you again. So now Elizabeth is going to talk briefly about the brief history of Britain Tanzania Society, which I think is well known to some of us here, but maybe not so much to others. Thank you.
I see. It's taking its time today. Excuse me. It's good to speak to you. For those who don't know, I'm chair of the Britain Tanzania Society, which is why I've taken on this role today. At the outset, I will say that the material in this presentation has been prepared by Julian Marcus, a former chair of TDT. He produced most of the slides. I've just modified them to suit more my method of delivery. So a very big thank you to Julian for that. Right, Britain Tanzania Society and Tanzania Development Trust have been in operation now for 45 years. During the 60s and 70s, relations between Tanzania and UK were often bad, mainly fueled by a fear from the US under President Richard Nixon and our Prime Minister, Harold Wilson, that communism was coming to Africa. And those fears were enhanced, if you like, as China financed and built the Tazara Railway, which connects Tanzania and Zambia. But in 1975, the founding president of Tanzania, Julius Kambarage Nyerere, Baba wa Taifa, fondly known as Mwalimu Nyerere, wanted to improve the image of Tanzania in Britain. He wanted to build up the friendship between the two countries. He already knew Bishop Trevor Huddleston, who'd been a fellow campaigner against apartheid in South Africa, and Roger Carter, who was education officer of the Ford Foundation, neither of whom had been in the colonial service. And he gave them every encouragement to set up the Britain Tanzania Society. So I think we, together with those in Tanzania, have great respect for Mwalimu Nyerere. We owe our existence to him. And the first chair of BTS was Bishop Trevor Huddleston, who'd been Anglican Bishop of Masasi from 1961 to 68. And those founding members of BTS knew friends who wanted to support projects in Tanzania. They needed to do something about it. So in 1975, they also founded the Tanzania Development Trust. And there we have some of the early leaders of BTS and TDT, two of whom are still with us, Eamon Nsekela and John Malachela. As you can see, we had a good balance of Brits and Tanzanians. Three of our founders we're showing here: Bishop Trevor Huddleston, there alongside President Nyerere, and Julia and Roger Carter. Roger was a very special founder member. He was, as we can see there, he was shy, compassionate, firm in his Quaker beliefs. But he built the Britain Tanzania Society and the Tanzania Development Trust from scratch and set the foundations for all our work. The founders produced constitutions for the Society and the Trust based on the draft by Roger, and both were launched in 75. And from the very beginning, Roger was insistent that the Society and the Trust must be a true partnership with Tanzanians, not to be just Brits running it. We know he would have loved the key role that our local representatives play in our projects. And I've been pleased to see in the years I've been a member, we moved away from what had become a very British committee as we're welcoming Tanzanians to join us in our work. And it was those founders who gave Tanzania Development Trust its mission to relieve poverty and sickness among the people of Tanzania by means of the development of education, health and other social services, the improvement of water supplies and other communal facilities, and the promotion of self-help activities. And we can see that is just what we've been doing for 45 years. And it was important what Roger Carter did in making TDT a registered charity and agreed that BTS would pay its expenses. And so TDT has been able to say every pound raised is spent on projects. Nothing is spent on fundraising, travel or administration. We're 100% run by volunteers, and we hope that we achieve our expertise without expense. And as chair of BTS, I'm pleased to say that we do continue to pay TDT's expenses and hope that we will continue to do so. But we've taken on a large role, and for that we've been supported by many donors. And significant among them is the Hilden Charitable Fund. And we say a very big thank you for them. In the beginning, we got to know the Hilden Fund through Bishop Trevor Huddleston, who was a friend of Tony and Joan Rampton, who had founded that trust in 1963. And we see that evidence of a letter there that Bishop Huddleston actually knew them quite well. Another major donor has been the African Palms Association. I'm sure many of you will have seen the products of that on Palm Sunday each year. As 58 years ago, the late Reverend Alan Talbot served under Bishop Huddleston in Masasi. and spotted that the locals were making the palm crosses, which could be sold in the USA and UK and raise money for projects in Tanzania. They've done a fantastic job and we've been privileged to work alongside them. So we move on to the 1980s. Then we had a major water project, a Kigo Zero in the Pwani region, which was a great success. Formerly, the women who were collecting water were being attacked by crocodiles and there'd been a fatality. But under this system, water is pumped by solar power to a large water tower and then fed by gravity to the different outlets. Sorry, I'm having great fun here being a host for this. I'm having to dodge around the other bits that Zoom throws up. That was our water project. And as we move on to the 1990s, in 96, the great disaster on Lake Victoria when the MV Bukoba heading from Mwanza capsized and sank with a loss of around 600 lives. But BTS and TDT together launched an appeal and an ultrasound scanner was bought for Bukoba Hospital as a memorial. And it's been our aim since then, whenever we hear of special need in Tanzania, we do try to respond, most recently with the earthquake a few years ago. And round about 1995, some members of BTS and TDT were invited to meet with Mwalimu Nyerere, a very, very important occasion. We can see him there in the midst of many people, some of whom you'll recognise. If you do happen to recognise yourself and you're not labelled, please do let us know. It'd be good to know who everybody is on that photograph. And Julian tells us in integrity, modesty and unselfishness remain an inspiration to all at BTS and TDT. And I know from my own time in Tanzania, the affection with which he was held. And I think all of us in BTS share that affection. And another significant person in that era was Trevor Jagger, whose death we reported at our recent AGM. He celebrated his 100th birthday, his 90th birthday rather, in 2015, and had the delight of receiving the letter reproduced here from President Ali Hassan Mwinyi, who is a president of BTS. Trevor led the project work in TDT for many years and was executive secretary of BTS and later became a vice president, which he remained until his death. He will be sadly missed. Other significant people were Danny and Petronella Mwasandube. Danny was one of the first BTS members I met in Tanzania as he handed over some paintings which I was bringing back to England after my visit there. He was significant within BTS and TDT, served as TDT treasurer, and he set up the Swahili congregation in central London. And I'm pleased to say that is a link which we've resurrected over the last few years. And our most recent BTS events have been held in the church that the Swahili congregation use. Two other very significant people were Liz and Ron Fennell, who worked tirelessly for us over the years. They're still in touch with us, but are very much backed out due to advancing years. And we as a society were delighted when they both received their MBEs. We have the tale of them visiting very western part of Tanzania, being the first people to arrive at one particular village by four-wheel vehicle. The more usual method was boat, but they were intrepid and went over land. So moving on to the 2000s, we supported the Bugiri Village for the Blind, which is on the road to Dodoma in Dodoma region, a fantastic setup there. And TDT provided a wind pump and water storage tank. And in the next decade, we provided an electric pump, but it's been a good establishment to support. They're doing fantastic work there. In 2006, we grant-aided the construction of Kikukwe dispensary in the Kagera region. It's been a long job, but we've been delighted to support it. And since we assisted the construction, we've funded the completion of it with water harvesting and electricity. So we hope they will continue well. It's in a rather remote area of Tanzania. Moving on to the 2010s. In 2012, we began a 3-year programme of support for a group of 4 secondary schools near Lake Ikimba, west of Lake Victoria. For those who might not know, that's Lake Victoria down there, Bukoba, and we can see the 4 schools that we supported with those 4 stars. Within that work, we provided textbooks, lab equipment and sports equipment, and we still continue with some aspects of that programme today. I can't say just how important that lab equipment is. Many schools just don't have any and suffer because of that. And I think a mention for Julian, perhaps one reason why I'm presenting this and not Julian, he was chair of TDT until 2015, during which he was very active in many of TDT's initiatives. We believe he may well be the last personal link with the founders, in that he joined the TD committee when Bishop Huddleston was chair. And we have the story that Julian was taking a party of Tanzanian students and teachers to the House of Commons and was arrested as possibly a suspected terrorist. But Bishop Huddleston sprung to the rescue and all was well. And we made Julian Vice President of BTS in recognition of his service to TDT. We've talked about what's happened over the years, but one thread that's run through all our work has been vocational education. It's vitally important in Tanzania. Everywhere you go, you see examples of it, giving young people the opportunity to gain the skills necessary to earn a living income. And TDT has funded vocational education since its very beginning. And the Kasulu Youth Development Project is an impressive example of this. There we have their building. The label on the door, I managed to read, and I reproduced at the top, Uashi, Usaramala, Ufundi Chuma, bricklaying, carpentry and metalwork, and other things besides, but that's just what that building is about. So there we've got the examples of the carpentry, the metalwork, and then what wasn't in that building is more for young ladies, the sewing, which is again something very popular because of the way people get their clothes made in Tanzania. And so the Vocational Training Centre has managed to raise its own income from selling all these things: doors and windows, chairs, tables, water carts, security grills, school uniforms, and much more. And the developments there have included a hand-dug well, kitchen and mess hall from local materials, a tool store, a meeting room for the trainers, the extension of the girls' dormitory to double its size. And the effect has been that they've now got a capacity for 50 students, girls and boys, men and women, 3 dormitories, and those living close by can attend as day students. And there they are putting the roof on. All skills acquired by these vocational training centres. So in summary, since our beginnings in 1975, TDT has given over 600 grants to more than 400 projects with a total value of over 2.5 million. We hope that is just a start and will continue. So thank you, and back to Janet.
Thank you so much, Elizabeth and Julian, for putting that together. That was fantastic. So I hope you can see my screen now. Elizabeth, can you see that?
Yes, you can see it. You're okay.
Okay, so my name's Janet. I'm now the chair, very recently, of Tanzania Development Trust. So I'm going to talk briefly about some of the things that we've been doing more recently. So as has been covered already, we've been going since 1975, and our 3 target areas now are sustainable access to water, particularly for rural communities, small income generating projects, and girls' education, particularly hostels. And these are the areas where we work. And in each of these areas, we have local representatives, many of whom are here today now, and you will hear from some of them shortly. One of the biggest projects that we've had recently is the Marumba project, which actually is an integration, a village level integration of all of those issues. And so we're going to hear next about that project from David.
The Marumba project. The Marumba project is a partnership between TDT and UCANAID. UCANAID, an NGO based in Brussels, have a policy to commit to a community for at least 3 years. And in 2015, they were looking for a partner organisation who had representatives on the ground, and they found this in TDT. Linus Buriani, our local representative in the south, put a convincing case for supporting Marumba, a remote village of about 2,000, close to the Mozambique border and deep in Mtwara region, and so this was then agreed. This was a new way for TDT to work, working with a shared commitment to one place over a longer period of time and focusing on education, water, health, and income generation. Since 2015, this has been steered and managed by Linus, working through the village council and local government. And here are some of the achievements since then. Classroom blocks with water and lighting. And you can see Kevin Curley, who was the project officer at the time, in one of the new classrooms in the top right. It has also provided toilet blocks for both staff and students, and this year a new kindergarten building, which you can see in the bottom right. Also this year has provided a photocopier, printer and computer with training for staff and local ward officers. One of the more noticeable impacts is that each year since 2018, neighbouring ward primary schools have come to the school for a month in the summer to improve and prepare their standard 7 students for their exams. And this has resulted in the ward primary schools now moving up to 2nd in the district. Previously for water, villages were going on a 16-kilometre round trip to the river Rovuma, where also there was a risk of crocodiles. So quite early on, TDT and UCANAID provided a new borehole and hand pump 1 kilometre south of the village. There is plenty of water from this borehole, and there are now proposals to start a vegetable garden and fish ponds nearby. Less successful, however, was the tree planting scheme, which was undertaken in conjunction or in association with the primary school. 3,000 trees were initially planted with great enthusiasm with the Environment Club. However, there's been poor survival, and some of the lessons learned include starting just with a few trees and plant trees that are especially resistant to goats. The health projects are centred around the village dispensary. First of all, it was provided with a concrete rainwater harvesting tank and solar for the fridge and vaccines. And you can see in the middle here some of the issues that the dispensary has to treat on a daily basis. In 2019, we had the grand opening ceremony for a new maternity ward with toilets and lighting provided. This also appeared on national TV. The first birth was in August of this year. One of the headline wider benefits of this project is that 20% of the people using the dispensary are villagers who are crossing the river Rovuma and coming up from Mozambique in order to use the better facilities at Marumba. Were traditional beekeepers in the area. They were given initial training from the Tanzanian Forest Authority, and 90 hives were built and some protective clothing provided. Initially, the hives were spread out north of the village, but had little success, as you can see in the bottom left. Linus advised them to move them nearer the river, and this they did, with great results. So by Easter of this year, 50 hives were full of bees and honey was being harvested. The group need help now with marketing, and they have very ambitious plans to make 300 more hives from the profits from their first honey harvest. And we are looking to see if we can connect the group with Innocent Makasu, who's the Bees Abroad representative living in Mtwara, but also happens to be the Mtwara District Bee Officer. Although there have been challenges, undoubtedly one of the reasons for the project's success is the ability to stick with projects over the longer term and iron out snags. The second has been the invaluable continuity and skill of Linus, as he has steered the project forward. The project has plans to bring itself to completion over the next 2 years, following up proposals for further income generation and some educational improvements. I'd like to thank all those involved, and also Africa Palms for their financial support in many of these projects.
Thank you very much, David and Linus, for that. And I will also circulate a recording from Linus with some more background to that project. So one of our areas obviously is water projects. At our AGM, we heard from Benedicto, who's been making the very cost-effective, locally drilled boreholes and rope pumps, as you can see on the left here. But we also have other types of water projects, such as rainwater harvesting, springs, and this dam that we're going to hear from now.
Years ago, in 2018, TDT received an application to repair a small dam at Vitale because 9 rural villages in Kigoma region with a total population of around 51,000 people and the local clinic were experiencing severe water shortages following damages to the dam due to rock falls. We visited this project and saw that this water supply could be reinstated and provide the 9 villages and the clinic with the healthy water service, as the original pipework installations to the villages were still in good condition. With the generous funding to fund this with the longer term benefits to the local community, as you can see.
Kabla mradi wa maji haujaja, tulikuwa tunashida sana maji, tunahangaika tunaenda wapi, lakini mlivyotuwekea maji tunashukuru Mungu tunapata maji.
Awali yote napenda kushukuru sana kwa mradi huu ambao binafsi nimekuja ni mradi ambao unaweza kuwa sana kwa sababu kama huduma za afya zinahitaji kubwa sana ya maji, upasuaji, huduma za udini za kusafisha kutoka, upasuaji wa mashuka, kufanya usafi udini, huduma zote hizo zinahitaji maji kwa kiwango cha kutosha, na huduma za karibia kila siku. Kwa matumizi ni makubwa sana. Kwa mradi huu umeweza kutatua changamoto hiyo ya upatikanaji wa maji hapa.
Kwa sasa hivi tunataka kujifungua hapa, pia wauguzi wa kujifunza inakuwa bepesi sana maji kusaidia. Katika tumetusaidia sana, na Mungu awezeshe muendelee na kazi vizuri.
So thank you to Deo for making that report very recently, and particular thanks to HJ Charity that helped us with that project. which is benefiting 51,000 people, and the dispensary, as you could see. So our third area is income generating projects. So as David has mentioned previously, we funded many beekeeping projects, small businesses, and tailoring. One of the areas that we're particularly interested in recently is solar pumps to allow particularly women's groups to grow crops on a much wider area. So this is what you can see in the beginning, in the middle there. And finally, girls' education. So we've talked a little bit about hostels already. So over to John to talk us through this.
Hello everyone, welcome to this short presentation on why TDT believes in supporting girls' education through hostels in secondary schools. Since 2008, hostels and dormitories has been mainly about completion of unfinished hostels or adaptation and conversion of existing buildings to create small dormitory space such as old classrooms or on-site houses. As you can see here, associated facilities have also been put into our programme, and we always aim to respond to need as expressed in applications from schools or local districts, but with very careful scrutiny of the application with the help of our local representatives and TDT project officers to discuss the situation on the ground with the head teachers and district officials and community members. Completions in 2015 was Ungasamo Secondary School, and Ungasamo was an interesting school. There was a dilapidated and outdated school building, and we were very pleased to be able to help the school refurbish that to create a place for 80 girls. Here they are, greetings from girls at Ungasamo in their new hostel. You might notice there's actually no beds here, but beds were provided, but this was just before all the beds arrived, and you can see these girls look very happy with their new facilities and their mosquito nets with the mattress on the floor. So why is it important for these girls? Well, it's safer for girls living in remote rural villages, making very long journeys each day to and fro school. It means that if they stay at school, they have opportunities for studies in the evening, leading to better examination grades. In 2015, I visited Ungasamo with my colleague Davey Gibbons, who you're going to hear from during this event as well. And we were able to be present at the opening of this school with great rejoicing, as you can see from the school students and all the girls lined up outside their new hostel. So this new hostel provides a safe place to live, protected, it says here, from possible abuse in unregulated accommodation. But it's more than that. It's not just the possibility of having to live in local unregulated houses in local villages, which has happened many times for young girls. And that can lead, this exposure to an open situation outside the school can lead to early pregnancy. And if you're pregnant in a school, you get immediate exclusion and your chances for education are totally lost. It also reduces dropout. Often girls find it very difficult to attend school, particularly if they're travelling to and fro long distances, 5, 7, 10 kilometres each day. Families are very keen to have girls working at home, looking after their young children, siblings, and so forth. And hostels therefore reduce dropout caused by those sort of pressures. Hostels enable girls to spend more time with each other in school, getting peer support, making more friends, and also there's the chance to introduce girls' clubs in evening after school activities which promote health, good study habits and other social activities to enjoy time together in school as well as their academic work. In rural schools in Tanzania without hostels, as few as 1% of the girls might complete their secondary education. In schools with hostels, it's shown that up to 50% of girls will complete their full secondary education. The impact of a hostel on girls' education is well demonstrated by Ikondo School, where we funded a small hostel for 9 girls in 2018. In 2 years, the numbers of girls passing examinations increased amazingly well. And that just shows the success of girls being able to stay in their school for studies right through the day and through the week. Government funding for hostels is available. I think about 70 million shillings for a hostel, but this does not build a complete hostel, essentially mainly to roof height. So there are many unfinished hostels in schools where local community and schools and districts do not have the budget to finish these buildings. And this is where TD's programme steps in. We want to support hostel completion in as many schools as possible. Our limited funds do not allow us to build hostels from the ground up, but we can help greatly with your support to complete unfinished hostels. My colleague Kevin Curley, project officer, is just visiting Tanzania. He's there at this moment. And last week he visited a Seke school where these 4 girls are standing in their uncompleted hostel. These girls have said, please help us to complete our hostel. Your generosity will find a lasting legacy in our greater safety and success in our studies and achievement. Finally, I'd like to leave it just to 2 girls from Manyoni School. Their words tell the story. I'll leave it for a moment for you to read what they have said. Thank you for sharing this presentation with me. And thank you for any support you have given or might be able to give to our programme hostels for all these girls in Tanzania.
Thank you very much, John, for the great presentation. Just a quick update. Ikondo School, which was at the hostel there, was built in the head teacher's house that he donated, and I believe there are 45 girls staying there now. So it has been a great success. And TDT is having a meeting to discuss how best to allocate funding for hostels and also to monitor their success on December the 14th. And if people are interested in joining that, if they have particular experience or interest in hostels, please do let me know. So TDT has always supported girls' and women's rights more generally. Many of you know our local rep, Roby Samweli, very, very well. She spoke briefly at the AGM, and this is an update on some of her work.
My name is Roby Samweli. I'm Director of Hope for Girls and Women in Tanzania. As Hope for Girls, we are working in eliminating gender-based violence in Tanzania, especially in Mara region. What we do, we are creating awareness to the community on the effects of FGM using different approaches. We run safe houses, 2 safe houses in Butiama and Serengeti in order to protect gender survivors in the safe houses. We also use mapping in order to eliminate gender-based violence through supporting and training digital champions who are provided with smartphones, in order to report GBV cases. Awareness creation, we have managed to reach 94,903, to reach 19,595 people in our community. Through school programs, we have reached 42,130 students in the schools. What we do in the safe house, we have managed to rescue 991 survivors since we started. And we have managed to reconcile with 824 girls with their families. And currently we have 167 girls with different cases, and most of them are the ones who are free from FGM in Mara. We also support the girls to continue with their education, primary school, secondary school, and some to join vocational class. We have managed in this year to send 47 girls to primary school, 27 girls to secondary school, and 33 girls who have joined vocational class and entrepreneurship class. Driving school, 2 girls, hotel management on the hospitality. Since we have started, we have taken 11 girls, where even these girls, some are now working and employed to our national park hotels, where they are paid in dollar. And some of the parents have now returned back, whom they didn't want to see their daughters back. Now they are trying to call them, asking them, tell them now they want to see them because they are their daughter. This is one of, we can see the changes in our community. The girls are valued when they have income. If you don't have income, you feel like someone who is unproductive. We also teach our girls on different things. We teach them on agriculture and organic farming, gardening. So we used to plant mchicha, spinach, tomato, onions, mahindi, potatoes, etc. And this training on how to make organic manure and you do gardening, this will help our girls. Even when they go back home, they will continue doing this in order to generate income for themselves. We continue with our work. We also succeeded to start Korea Cultural Center. This Korea Cultural Center is helping to promote good culture for the Korean tribe. We know not all traditions and customs are bad. We are fighting against these bad traditions which are hindering women's rights, like female genital mutilation, early child marriage, wife battery, etc. That is also, we are empowering local activists in order to do their work in the community to help this fight against FGM, like TDT Chair. They are also supporting us in doing follow-ups to the girls who have been taken back. But also they are supporting us to run girls' clubs in the community so that they help to identify different violences from those girls who are there in the community, who are out of school. We are also succeeded to do a project called Safe Alternatives for FGM Elimination with the support from FOCO. We do psychosocial support to girls who are in the safe houses, but also to the women and girls who have been cut, who are there in the community. We are working in a collaboration with different actors. We are working with the Plus House, who are supporting us to support children with a disability. They do treatment to these children in Arusha. We are also working with the Maternity Africa, who are supporting women with the fistula. So if we identify women with the fistula, we support them to go to Arusha and attend at African maternity. We thank our partners who are working with us and who are helping us very much. We would like to give our thanks to Singita Gomet, who have supported us to secure a land of 20 hectares, and which will be planned to build the permanent buildings for the safe house, the classes, a big vocational, and etc. And we have managed to secure 2 vehicles, one from Four Seasons Land Cruiser, and another Land Cruiser hardtop from USA. We also have 2 motorbikes which are helping us in our work in Butiama and the Serengeti. And these motorbikes we are secured from our friends, one from Marin and the other from one of our friends here. We have health passports. These are helping to provide a lot of information to girls and FGM survivors around our centers, but around our districts. These health passports will provide information, but also it consists of different contacts, where if the girls they are facing any problem or any challenge or they're at risk, it is easily for them to call and they will receive a support. Thank you very much, TDT. Thank you all friends. Thank you all, Baba Julian, Mama Ann, and the others who are working very much to fundraise for Hope for Girls and the women in Tanzania. We are praying for you. Thank you, and I'm wishing you a good meeting. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Roby. It's always fantastic to hear from you. And I'm not sure if Roby was able to join us today because I know she's extremely busy because currently there is a cutting season just about to start or just starting, and she's expecting to rescue 350 girls in the upcoming weeks. It's also 16 days of activism, which is highlighting the campaign against gender-based violence more generally. So she has a number of events planned for that, including a march of girls around Butiama town. And together, her and I are having a mapping event also on the 10th of December, which we'll share a link to if you're interested to join us. So, what are the lessons learnt of 45 years of Tanzania Development Trust? Obviously, I've been involved with TDT for 8 years only. Many of you here have been involved a lot longer. So it would be fantastic to hear what people's views. So please do contribute your views around the lessons you think we learned or we should have learned in the chat. And shortly we'll open it up for everyone's views and a more general discussion. But in terms of my personal view, change takes time. So building strong long-term relationships is key. This is why our local representatives are so vital. Building up relationships with them and with other stakeholders actually on the ground is really vital. Personally, I think TDT has moved away from some of the much larger projects in the past to smaller projects, perhaps funding them a little bit at a time. So particularly small income generating projects, a few £100 can make a massive impact. People can then put that money back and build the project and so on. It's obviously much less risky. Understanding the local context is absolutely vital, of course. Again, our local reps who really know the condition in their area are incredibly important there, and I hope that we can hear from some of them very shortly. Partnerships are important. We have long-term partnerships with some of the funders that we've already mentioned, UKAID, African Palms, Hilden, and so on. And we're also trying to develop more partnerships, such as with Bees Abroad, and potentially people like Sim Solar, who are the people making this fairly low-cost solar pumps. And regular communication is critical, though obviously it can be challenging, particularly some of our local reps in particular, and some of the projects are in areas with very, very poor connectivity. And what do I feel that the next steps might be? Well, this year has been a very difficult year for everyone, but it has shown that we can make more use of online platforms like Zoom. So one of the upsides has been that we've been able to have much more communication directly with people from Tanzania and other places in forums like this. So in our committee meetings, in our AGM, in our webinars, it's been really wonderful to see and have participation from many more Tanzanians. And I'm sure we will also start to use technology in more other ways as well. So we're currently looking at moving to a better way to store documents like SharePoint, and there are a lot of really interesting apps and so on coming out that give particularly around advice for agriculture and so on, and I'm sure we'll see more of that. And new technology like the solar irrigation pumps are being more and more developed. For TDT, I'm hoping we will start to have more of a systematic monitoring of what works and what we can learn from our projects, particularly involving the local reps in those decisions more. And as I mentioned, more partnerships. So if you're interested in working more closely with TDT, please do get in touch. One of the areas that we're experimenting and thinking about is potentially for some of our projects where businesses are a little bit more established, potentially giving out loans that can then be paid back into a revolving fund is something that we're considering. So if people have got experience of that and are interested, then again, it'd be very good to hear from you. And this is a project that I think is particularly interesting. It doesn't use new technology. I'm hoping that Deo, who you heard from previously, is here to answer any questions shortly, but I'll let him speak about what this involves.
Unasikiliza 98.9 Kikole FM.
I started this project when I was a student myself in Europe. And of course, I realized how privileged I was to have been educated. There are so many people who have not got the same chance to be educated. This project consists of a radio. It's a distance education. Kikora Radio stands on 3 pillars. The first pillar is the studio. This is where the programs are prepared. The second pillar are the teachers who prepare these programs. The third pillar are the facilitators. These are people who have been educated and who are ready to support their brothers and sisters for this distance education. We have other projects. One of them is the protection of the environment. The good thing of protecting the nature is twofold. First, we create employment. In the second, we are sure that our nature is well protected. The second project is about health. We have different problems. COVID-19. Kikora Radio strives to provide a good education that the people know how to protect themselves, even though the disease itself is not so bad in Africa. We have other diseases, HIV, paludism, dysentery for children. A third project is entrepreneurship, because the biggest challenge is unemployment. Kikora Radio works with experts to provide a very good training that young people can learn technical skills that empower them to start private enterprises.
Hebu tuambie wewe hii radio ya Kikora inayoanza, wewe unaionaje kama mwanafunzi au kama mtu ambaye ana kiu ya kuendeleza kielimu?
Naona kupitia hii Kikora Radio ndio itanisaidia vitu vingi mimi kama msichana kujifunza haki zangu.
Kwa jina naitwa Elizabeth Rafael. Nimeishia elimu yangu darasa la 7, najutia kwa sababu maisha yalikuwa ni magofu. Ndio maana sikuendelea kwenda mbali. Kupitia redio hii ya Kikora, naomba itufaidishe sisi ambayo ni wafanya biashara wadogo na ambao ni wa elimu ya chini. Tuangalie sisi wafanya biashara wadogo ituweke mbele.
For more details about Kikora Radio, please refer to the address below. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Deo, and we wish you every success with this project, and we'll share the contact details if people want them. I just wanted to flag up the 3 events that we've got coming up. So the book launch on the 9th of December, the mapping event on the 10th of December, and then Chambi's event on the 20th of January. I will circulate the links for these, and I really hope people are able to join at least some of them. I would be very remiss if I didn't remind people, if you haven't yet got your TDT cards, please do so. This is the application form, and the event, the details are on the TDT website, and I will also circulate the link. And also our Christmas appeal is again clean water, using this very cost-effective method that Benedicto has perfected for bringing water to a village. It costs £1,500 to do a hand-drilled borehole and rope pump for a village, which can impact up to 1,200 people. So a very good use of resources. If you're thinking of somewhere to donate to over Christmas, that would be very, very much appreciated. And these are my contact details. If you're interested in learning more about TDT or would like to get involved in any way or have any questions or comments, then please do get in touch. Thank you very much. So I will stop sharing my screen. And it would be great to hear from some other people, particularly about if there are any questions or if people would like to comment on what they feel the lessons learned over the last 45 years were. Ezekiel, are you still there? Ezekiel, if you're there, if you'd like to...
yes, Janet, I'm around.
Brilliant. Okay, do you want to switch your video on and introduce and say, maybe you could talk a little bit, particularly around the microfinance that you've been doing?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. I'm Ezekiel Kasanga, representing TDT in Simiyu region. We're in the Lake Zone regions of Tanzania. I would like to share something about microfinance. Actually, our organization, I'm working with an organization called the Kawiye Social Development Foundation. It's a local NGO, and it has received a lot of support from TDT also, plus other partners. We have a microfinance scheme, which started running from the year, it was 2014, yeah. It was 2014, around September, we started our microfinance. Actually, the microfinance we are doing is a bit different from those of banks because other financial institutions like banks, they also having the microfinance window. They call microfinance window. They supporting these small entrepreneurs and medium entrepreneurs. But ours is a bit different because of two major things. The first thing is the condition of the loans we are giving. And second is the issue of training. Because if you go to the banks and the other commercial loan giving institutions, they have a lot of conditions which cannot be met by small entrepreneurs and medium entrepreneurs, especially women and youth. So ours, the way we do, we don't give those restrictive conditions. And again, we also offer training before giving loans and after giving loans. And the loans we are giving are also small. So they fit all those people who are thinking of starting their small businesses and those who want to scale up. That is what I can say in short. Again, it is the way we are organizing. Some of the clients, especially women, we are mobilizing them to form their small groups in which they can monitor and mentoring themselves. That is another difference we are making. And with that, it's like we are empowering them with different entrepreneurship skills, the way they can produce their commodities, the way they can make saving, the way they can make their repayment, and also the way they can also scale up their small businesses. But at the moment, actually, I can say we have got a new law that is trying to regulate the microfinance sector in Tanzania. And it was enacted, I think, in 2018, and it started operating officially last year, September. So we were given a 1-year grace period, which ended in last October. But the Bank of Tanzania has made an extension. So we have been given more 6 months until April next year. But the issue we are facing is a challenge, especially with regard to small microfinance organizations like ours, is for those microfinance organizations which are operating as CBOs, community-based organizations. Based on the new law, we are required to be registered by the local governments, the halmashauri in our locality. But unfortunately, it's like the local government authorities have not yet received the directions and the instruction on how to register the microfinance. So when we call the Bank of Tanzania asking them on how we can register our microfinance, they say, please, based on your category, you have to go to the local government in your locality. But still the local government authorities, they know, it's like they know nothing. It sounds like they know nothing. They have not yet received the directions on how to go through about registering the CBOs. So that is the challenge. So at the moment, it's like we are stuck, because when you give loans, also we use these contracts, and the contracts actually are legal agreements. So making a legal agreement with a client means you have to be also a legal entity. Because if it happens, for instance, by any reason, the client is not ready to repay, sometimes we go even to the court of law. And when you go there, you have to appear as a legal entity. Now, that is the challenge. But the microfinance sector by itself, especially with CBOs and NGOs, is very potential, because we have thousands of women and youth who need support, and actually they cannot access those loans from banks and other loan-giving institutions.
Thank you very much, Ezekiel. That was extremely helpful. I'm glad to see that Alison Eriksson from Friends of Tanzania is here. If you'd like to say something brief about Friends of Tanzania and what you do, that would be fantastic, Alison.
Sure, hi.
Hello, and happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you. So Friends of Tanzania is based in the United States. We are celebrating our 30th anniversary in 2021. So we're very excited to see how your online event is going and maybe try to steal some tips for our own. So we were started in, I believe, 1991 by predominantly volunteers who had served in Peace Corps and VSO and other programs in Tanzania. We support small development projects in Tanzania, occasionally alongside the Tanzania Development Trust. We don't have the on-the-ground presence that the Britain Tanzania Society has, but we are still supporting programs out there. We have member-sponsored programs where people can donate funds to sponsor specific programs, such as scholarships at schools they have connections to, in communities that they are already familiar with. And we are looking forward to what the future holds for both of our organizations.
Thank you very much. Yes, indeed, it would be wonderful to work more closely with you in future. So we've got Bahati Richardson from Yes I Do, who's said his contribution on lessons learned is about community-owned initiated proposed projects and about using local organizations. I would totally agree with that. But Bahati, would you like to say something?
Well, I just want to thank you for an amazing session. Unfortunately, I'm not in a very good environment. It's a bit noisy. That's why I decided to just send my contribution in a message. But otherwise, I am really very happy today to join this team and sharing the views from across the world, I can say, Tanzania, maybe UK and somewhere else,
US.
wherever everyone is. Yes, and the US, I think.
Yep.
Thank you so much. And maybe I'll keep following and joining your meetings all the time because I am learning a lot. Thank you. And actually, I'm inspired as a youth and as a reader from a youth NGO. I'm very much happy to learn a lot of things that you people are doing on the ground. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Okay, so now the floor is open. So if anybody would like to either ask questions around any of the things that have happened, any of the presenters so far, or make some comments on what they think the lessons learned and what the priorities for the future should be, please unmute yourself and contribute.
Can I make a comment then, Janet, please?
Yes, please do.
When I was chair of TDT, generally speaking, we were a centralized organization and we worked from the top down. And one of the defects of that was that occasionally, not often in comparison with the large organizations, but occasionally we would lose money on projects through fraud. We developed this process of working with local representatives like Ezekiel, like Roby, like Evelyn and others who are made such a huge contribution to the whole ethos and development of the Tanzania Development Trust. It means that it's much more of a partnership organization now. And it means too that the verification of projects is so much better. On the whole, what happens when a project, if it's, I guess, is still the same, when an application is received, one of the things that happens is that the local representative goes to visit and vets the people, and very often they know them, they know their reputation and whether they're honest people or not. And so it adds enormously to the strength of what we're doing. And there are other organizations, you saw the example, friends, of the project in Marumba, which is run in partnership with UKNA. UKNA don't have anybody on the ground.
Mm-hmm.
And so they work with us because we have local people there who can really advise us to make sure that there's good value for money out of the project and so on. So I want to say how wonderful it is to see all these local representatives. What a great job they're doing for TDT. Bless you all and good luck to you as you work hard in the future.
Thank you so much, Julian. I couldn't agree more. We've heard briefly from Ezekiel. I think Wilhard is still here. Wilhard, if you're there, do you want to unmute yourself and say anything?
He's still online.
Okay, and also Linus is here. So Wilhard, can you hear us? Or Linus, would either of you like to say something? It would be great to hear from you from Tanzania. Oh, Wilhard.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi. I'm just follow the discussion, and it is really, really interesting to see how TDT work, how they started, and where we are right now. I'm just learning from you guys. That's what I can say.
No, we're learning from you too, though.
Okay, thank you.
Can I just come in there very briefly and say thank you to Wilhard for the photos from Manyoni School, because everybody may not know that Wilhard teaches at Manyoni School as well as being a great local rep for the Manyoni district and has been meeting with Kevin recently on his visits. So thanks a lot, Wilhard. You've done a great job for us there and we look forward to going on working with you. And it's great to see your girls, and thank you for the messages from Umi and Angelina. Lovely.
Exactly.
Thank you, Jonathan.
But also, Wilhard, you've been involved in many income generating projects.
Yeah.
I don't know if you want to say something about which ones have been particularly successful so far.
Okay. In Manyoni, there's a lot of projects that have been financed by TDT. And when it comes to income generating project, we have a group of women called the Chihuliko. They are dealing with tailoring. And in 2018, they made the application to TDT to support their business and their projects. They have an idea of extending their working places so they can be able to support some young girls in our community. Girls who finish the Form 4, most of them, they didn't get a good result in academic. So it comes like they're in dilemma, what they are going to do with their lives. So those women, most of them are older. They see that challenge. So they apply for the TDT. So TDT finances them to extend their workplace, bought new machines, more machines. So now they have a huge place for their tailoring business. And also they conduct a training for those young girls on how to do a tailoring as a Thanksgiving back to the community. That's what I can say in income generating project here in Manyoni. And it's really, really going well because it changed the life of those women and also those young girls who are supported in training from those women. Also, we have another group called the Amkeni groups from Mwahalala village. That group are dealing with the cow rearing. They have one cow before TDT support them. And right now we are talking, they have about 10 cows. They're dealing with cow rearing, get enough milk for their families and also to sell to the community, so they generate enough money to support their life. That is a really, really, really a good thing that TDT did it in our community. So that's we can see we got a lot of application from other groups because of those groups that they've been successful because of what they get from TDT. And that is all I can say.
Fantastic, thank you so much. Right, there's a question from Graham Cole about, does anyone know how to make a rainwater harvesting tank underground that doesn't leak? So if anyone has done this and has got any advice, I think there are some engineers on the call, so perhaps if you've got any quick advice now and would like to say so, or perhaps you can contact Graham directly. I don't know if Graham wants to say anything about this or if anyone else wants to chip in.
Most of our concrete ones are above ground, aren't they?
Yeah.
Hello?
Linus, did you want to say something?
Yes, I would like to contribute on the underground water tanks. I've done many.
Oh.
I'm not an engineer, but I've been in a field where we have plateaus, and so the possibility of having a borehole is not possible. So the only option we have is to develop those underground water tanks. So it depends to the nature of an area and the soil, but if we can keep in touch with the one who needs some help, I can provide some writings on the best approach and methodology that they can help without leaking or breaking the walls and the water is be lost. We have done, I've done many in my area because of the nature of the village. Most of the people are using bricks, cement bricks, and they're digging like a hole and building those kind of bricks inside of that. It is also good, but you should have very good technicians who can do that without causing problems. But in my area, let's take my example. In my area, we don't use bricks, cement bricks. We only use the walls. We dig the hole and then we are plastering the wall without putting bricks inside the underground water tanks. And we found that is very practical and helpful, and also the well is lasting for long. That is all my contribution on the issue of underground water tanks. But anyone is welcome to chat with me. I can provide some evidence and methodologies on how practically that can be done without causing problems for maybe 10 to 15 years.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Linus. I think everyone would, or many people would be interested in that. I certainly would be. If you're able to send me something, then I can circulate it with the recording, because I know that TDT would be very interested in that. Thank you.
Janet, I have a photo on the screen of mine. I can't share the screen, of an underground water tank at Marumba, which Linus will know about. So I'll send it to you to send on.
Can you not share your screen, Jonathan?
Sorry?
Can you not share your screen?
No, don't worry now.
I'm sure it's okay.
I'll send it on. I'll send it on.
Janet?
Yes.
I have something to add on underground tanks. Here in Manyoni, we also have that project about the 80 secondary school have been supported by TDT to dig those underground tanks, and they are doing fine. What we did here, we didn't use a brick cement. We dig the hole, then we use stones, huge stones to create a concrete wall. So those stones, we plastering them with cement, with a high ratio of cement. We got a good result. We got a good result. Leakage in those tanks is not something that you can recognize. We can store water for a long period within those tanks, because we use stones to create a wall for the tanks.
Fantastic.
That is what I can advise you to use a stone, but it depends on the area if you have with all the stones. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, and that's why I said if it depends on the budget, and if you have limited budget, and if you are living in a place whereby you don't have more stones like available, so what you are doing, we are just putting like a good ratio of cement. We are putting in another wall with chicken wire. We have, I'm not sure whether you know chicken wire. We have chicken wire, so we put chicken wire, and then we plaster again. And then we put chicken wire again, and then we plaster again. It is very cheap, but you can get something which can last for long. It is good to use stones. I agree with the ones that suggested, but imagine a place like Rondo where you don't have more stones. It is very costly to have even one trip of stone, because it is a plateau, and you have to go down very far away to find those kind of stones. So the best and cheap and the best method that you can use it for long year is only to use a chicken wire. You use a good ratio of cement, and make sure that you put about 3 or 4 walls attached with a hole that you are digging. And I will send you tomorrow some thoughts. Currently, I'm doing that. Where I'm living now. We are digging underground water tank of about 200 liters in my area, and we are using the same methodology that I'm just explaining. So I'll share with you some thoughts and practically how we do about that. And maybe it can be opted to where you don't have more stones, to where you don't have more budget, and the people have problems, and you need to find a solution for that. You can have different solutions and options. You remember in Marumba, we used bricks. It was a bricks made up of a well. Good enough that we had a very good builder. We have a very good builder who built it with a very strong ratio. So there is no problem. But if you don't have a good builder, I cannot advise to use bricks, because it can break within minutes.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Linus. We will look forward to hearing your getting your instructions. That would be really helpful.
May I say one more thing?
Yeah.
Yeah, and Elizabeth, I noticed that Anne and Peter Monheim from Germany are listening, and Anne is the daughter of Roger Carter, our founder.
Oh,
so,
amazing.
It's lovely to see them there. And I wonder if Anne wanted to say anything to TDT.
That
need to
fantastic. Yeah.
To unmute her microphone.
Welcome.
Hello.
Hi.
Thank you so much. And thank you very much for the wonderful things you said about my parents. And I'm so pleased, and I'm sure they both would have been absolutely delighted to see how far the TDT and Britain Tanzania Society generally has developed, and so positively. It is so delightful to hear the BTS is such a lively society still, and in fact becoming more lively by the day, as far as I can gather. And yeah, I'm sure that my parents would have been absolutely delighted, and thank you.
You're very welcome, and it's fantastic that you can join. And now that we are having all our events online, I hope you'll be able to join many others, particularly the next one, the book launch, which I think would be very interesting.
Thank you. Yes, and I'd be delighted to join. Thank you very much. Okay.
Thank you from me too, and to Julian for pointing out who you are.
Yeah,
Monheim's surname was a bit of a, made you a secret.
I noticed that I think there's Barbara and possibly others from Christian Engineers in Development. If Barbara or anyone else from that organisation would like to say something about what they do, that would be interesting.
I think Barbara.
Hello. I'm sorry, I'm just trying to move to a different room so that you can actually see me.
You can just talk if you want.
There we go.
Oh, there you go.
Yes, I think probably quite a few of you know Dick Waller, who's been a member of Christian Engineers in Development for a long time. He wasn't able to join today, but I thought I would. I've been involved in quite a few projects in Tanzania. We've recently been doing quite a lot of training of local groups in building tanks for rainwater harvesting. Mm-hmm. So I'd also be very interested in learning about the underground tanks that Linus has just been talking about. I don't think we've built any underground tanks in Tanzania, but we have elsewhere around the world, and it'd be good to compare notes.
So what other projects have you done in Tanzania? Has it mostly been rainwater harvesting?
We did some very large gravity supply systems in the Iringa region. But more recently, it's been much smaller projects. Yeah. It's just becoming increasingly difficult to get the large funds that are necessary for gravity systems. Yeah, which is such a shame because they're the most sustainable systems generally.
We've just put in funded a pipeline from a well in Kagera, which we're about to extend. I mean, is that what you're talking about for gravity systems, or are they bigger than that?
I'm talking about where we might take water from one or more springs quite high up and pipe it down to several thousand people. Yeah. Well,
it would be interesting to get your views on the one that we've done in Kagera then, because that sounds as if that is that. John, do you want to say more?
Yeah, just hello, Barbara.
Hello.
I've been involved with other colleagues on water projects in Kagera where there are many streams. It's quite a good area for water, like yours, because the highlands. And there are many springs, but rather than piping it, what they do there is they build water points, and they're like a big concrete sort of bastion with shingle filtering and all that. And these rough streams coming down, which can be easily contaminated, are fed into these water points. And then you simply have one or two outlet pipes coming out. So you've got no pipe work coming down the mountains at all. It's just natural flow of natural water. But once it gets to a lower place near villages, it's contained into these water points, and it provides very much cleaner, uncontaminated water. And we've done, I think now, a dozen of these, and they're quite reasonable price to build these. We've had some help with granting those. So that you might like to, if you want to know more about that, we can get some info via Janet to you about that.
That would be great. Thank you very much.
Really worth looking at, because they are, I don't think Dan Hutchinson, my colleague, is online today, but Dan's been the project officer, but I've been involved with it as well. Because in fact, I also did this pipeline project, which is a more traditional 2.5 kilometre pipeline. We did one in Kinyika village in Manyoni district, which Will Hard will know as well. I think it was Manyoni. And that is a more traditional, comes from a government source of water. And that does cost a bit more. But these water points, I mean, I think they're about £1,500 each. So it really is quite an economical thing. But Janet can send you the info on that.
Yes, I will do it.
Jonathan.
Connect and find out more about what you do, Barbara.
They're mostly in Muleba district, around that area, but they're up in the hills. Julian knows it well as well, and David. We all know it very well up there.
Yes, indeed. Right. Anybody else, particularly anyone who hasn't spoken yet, like to say anything?
I spoke earlier, but actually I failed to say something. You know, we are in the Thanksgiving week, and I feel actually to acknowledge and appreciate what the TDT has done within this time period we are talking about. The 45 years is something that is very big. I have been the witness of part of what the TDT has been done, especially in my region. You have mentioned few things actually, but still TDT has done a lot of things, so many things in my region, through our organization, through other organizations. I have seen the way TDT has supported the health projects, for instance. We have one in Busega district, the dispensary. You granted it about 15 million Tanzanian shillings last year. We have school projects. We did the installation of water storage devices in Simiyu. I remember David visited some of those projects. I visited the Ngasamo girls hostel with Jonathan, his little our son. So on behalf of Tanzanian community and my fellow local representatives, actually, I would like to say thank you for TDT for what you have done. Actually, you have done a very big job. Thank you very much on behalf of the Tanzanian community.
Ezekiel, you were a fantastic help with Ngasamo, because there was quite a lot of district and local officialdom to deal with on that project, and David will remember that well. I won't go into it all here, but you were terrific help as a local rep, and we came out and met you there, I think, and there were lots of other meetings that I wasn't involved in, and David may not have been, so thank you very much. And that's the sort of shared efforts that go on with the local reps, which is so helpful for us when we're spending quite a lot of money, sending quite a lot of money to, you know, projects that we don't have first-hand knowledge of until we get there, but we did get there this time.
Absolutely. Well, thank you, Ezekiel. On behalf of TDT generally, I would really like to reiterate the thanks to the local reps like yourself, because really all of this would be impossible without you. So thank you again.
And that is our contribution also. Don't mention, that is our contribution, because we are receiving grants. We have to make sure that they are used properly.
Yeah,
thank you.
Well, you do it very well, and we need to keep it acknowledging that. So we've got Caroline from Village Africa. Would you like to say something about what you do?
Thank you very much. Firstly, thank you for the invitation to come today. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes. I first came to one of your meetings many years ago in London, but now I've been...
It's okay, carry on.
It's okay. I first came to one of your meetings in London many years ago, but for the last 20 years I've been living in Tanzania.
Oh.
And I live in a very remote village high in the mountains in Lesotho. we can actually see Kenya from our village. The first thing I'd like to say is Tanzania has changed a lot in the last 20 years, and it was really on the up. So I think you can all feel very pleased with everything you've done. It's amazing what you have done. And things are really changing. You know, some people maybe don't have shoes on, but they have a mobile phone and use motorbikes and so on. So Tanzania has really changed a lot in 20 years, and I can vouch for that, even in the remote areas. So I think what you've done is incredible. What we do is we're working with the village for development in any way we can. So when we went there, nobody was helping. And I managed to start a volunteer program and brought about 500 volunteers, nearly all from Britain, but a few from other English-speaking countries. Unfortunately, we had to stop the program in 2012 due to immigration, but people are still supporting us and are keen for the village to go further forward. So our main aim is to alleviate poverty. We work in health, education, and do a tiny bit in farming. So we just started with the basics, like teaching people about soap and mosquito nets, going to school, real basic stuff. And now we're moving a bit further forward. So it would be good to have partners like you, because things like doing water is difficult. You need to be an expert. You know, I wouldn't know how to do a water tank or whatever. So it would be good for us now to be able to partner. The same with farming. You know, I'm not a farming expert. You know, once I've taught them the basics, it's then good to have partnerships with people who really know what they're doing. So it's been very helpful to come to this. I'm actually in lockdown in the UK, so that's why I'm able to come. We have some network in the village, definitely for mobile phones, but it's not great for the internet. So I tend to go to Tanga when I'm there to use the internet, because the world is online now. Without the internet, we wouldn't have a project, because all our support has come that way. So thank you very much for the invitation. And I would like to encourage you, because Tanzania is really going up and people are so appreciative. The way Ezekiel just spoke, people really appreciate things. When I started our project, someone said to me, "Thank you so much for what you've done. You've given my child a pencil." And I wanted to cry. You know, they appreciate even small things like a pencil. And if you give them something like a classroom or a water tank, they're absolutely bowled over. And I think Ezekiel has explained that. So I encourage you to keep going and to know that you're really making a difference. And I'd love to get in touch with Janet about how maybe we could partner together. And I don't know if you could have a local rep in Tanga. I see we weren't on the list. So how do local reps come about?
We have local reps in the areas where we work, and we don't work in Tanga. But I do know people in Tanga, and yes, please do email me.
Okay, so would you be thinking to have reps in more areas?
Probably not at this point.
I just comment there, Caroline. On the way up to Lushoto, at Sony, there's a major water project which we did fund in the past, and the water there is brought down from the mountains through a pipeline. It's well worth you're going to have a look at it when you can go back.
Yeah, brilliant, thank you.
Are you near the viewpoint?
No, we're not really near Lushoto. We're about 4 hours from there. We have to go to Mashewa. Do you know that? It's you're going from Korogwe to Mashewa and then up the mountain. So we're on the sort of very edge of Lushoto district.
We did one good thing recently, Caroline, although we don't work in Tanga, although I've been there, and David, I know David was nodding away there with great delight at the thoughts of our trips to Lushoto with school visits with Julian's school. I mean, it's a good few years ago. But we did actually provide quite a lot of support to Lushoto Hospital and the outlying village dispensaries during the COVID crisis. We sent quite a lot of money to them as part of our COVID appeal to help with PPE kit. So we were at least able to do that to help the people of that lovely region that we all love so much around Lushoto in the Usambara Mountains there with health safety during the COVID crisis.
Yeah, brilliant, thank you.
Thank you. So Hamida, would you like to talk about Nawala? You're muted. Great.
Yeah, just I thought I better speak, as every time I log on, the computer puts me as #1 on the top. So people are wondering, who is this person who comes on? I am a member of St. Michael's Church in Bramo, and one of my colleagues is also on the line, called Tony Johnson, who is already a member. And another one was called Keith Fenwick, who was a member of BTS before, but unfortunately, I don't know if you all know, he died this year from COVID. So I have joined in to start learning a bit about what you do, and I'm hoping probably to become a member in January. I said I'll just first see what you do, but I may join you as a member. What we do as a church, and I don't know how you are connected with any churches in Tanzania. Our church in Bramo, out of the Millennium Goals, we decided to have something which we were doing in our own community here in Bramo, but also something we can do abroad. And out of connections which Keith had with the USPG, something like that, they introduced us to say that there was a new diocese called Newara, which was like a division between the Masasi and Newara. There was something called Masasi diocese, but it was divided into two because it was very big. So really we started with them basically as they were starting. And we finance, and just to cut the long story short, we up to now, like you, I mean, I think Janet, you know, we've wrote to you to say we just need to understand certain things because we've been sending money via the diocese, but we haven't got any representative there. So we depend on everything that they tell us. We have had 2 visits from our people to go to Newara to see what's happening, and everybody was excited about it. But as originally, I'm the only person in the church who is from Tanzania, and I didn't start the project. I just want to make sure that everything is right, you know, because you feel like you're not sure. So it will be nice to learn what you people are doing and how you are dealing with it, and maybe whether we can help each other in certain things, like they talked about the water wells. We've sponsored 3 water wells. Now, as far as we know, they'd work, and they're the underground ones. So I didn't want to speak earlier because I'm not an engineer at all, but we've got somebody who is the development engineer. I think he worked for the Tanzanian government before.
So Nawala is in Mtwara, and very close to where Linus is. So Linus, I think you know this area well.
Yes, I know, and Diocese of Nawala is our sister. We are brother, so we are like brother and sister diocese. And
so are you in Masasi?
Yes, I'm in Masasi, and I used to work. And I used to work with the development department for about 5 years before moving now to another department of education. So I know very well Bishop Oscar and many people in Nawala. I've been there for many times.
That's
so maybe we can keep in touch. Yeah, sure.
That would be very good. Thank you. That's all I will say for now. We are waiting to speak to Janet one of these days because we are hoping she'll give us some time.
Well, so the idea was to set up a webinar specifically for people that are working in Mtwara, really.
Yes.
So, and I know, so Alison, I believe that you'll also have some links with Nawala and or with organisations working in Nawala. I don't know if Alison is still there. Anyway.
We might. I don't have that in front of me right now.
That's okay. I believe there's an organisation that, I think David, you know.
I was just going to say that in Nawala town itself, we sponsored we helped with the facilities for a girls' hostel with a group called Giamini, who there's a Dutch gentleman working, and he lives in the village, in the town, and he delivered very good value for money. A water tank, one of these mostly underground water tanks, beds, a kitchen, and girls' toilets for not much more than £3,000. And they have a website, Giamini, and We also have another representative in the area called Godfrey Mackenzie, who lives in Nawala. I think the village Sindano is possibly in Nawala.
In myself.
He helped us with fitting out a science laboratory last year. So it would be good if we could have one of these Zoom meetings together, and particularly if we could have Linus and others from Tanzania, because also contributing.
Oh, absolutely. That is the plan. I thought it was better to do it after this meeting.
Yes.
So
yes.
So yes, let's do that. So Hamida, if you just put your email maybe in the chat. I think I probably have it, because I think
you have it.
Yeah.
But I'll send it to
maybe we can set something up maybe in the next couple of weeks even.
That'd be good.
Just to get started. So if there's anybody else who's working in Mtwara or knows of groups in Mtwara, then the idea was just to have better links in that area, because there were quite a lot of people.
The Friends of Masasi and Nawala.
Yeah. Okay, so we're almost out of time, really. I don't know if anyone else wants to speak. Chambi, I don't know if you're still there, really. I wasn't expecting you to stay on a Saturday. If you are and you want to say anything, please unmute yourself. Yes, Steve, you're definitely, I didn't realize you were here, but yes, part of the Nawala stroke Mtwara group. And if anyone else is interested, let me know. Okay. So question about Tabora. So the person who was the local rep is no longer there. He left to do other things. However, Ezekiel has a project in Tabora. And so I believe that Ezekiel, do you want to say anything about the situation in Tabora or what you're doing in Tabora?
Yes, Janet. What I'm doing in Tabora is a project which is focused to support these teenage mothers who are expelled out of public schools because of pregnancy. And based on the policy we have right now in Tanzania, they are not allowed actually to get back to school after delivery. And the government has asked the non-governmental organizations and the other stakeholders to support those girls through the alternative education pathways. And one of them is the open school alternative. So we have the project, we have started the project. We are in the construction now. We are constructing a school that will be for those girls. And we have started with 3 classrooms. We have erected walls, and now we are thinking of moving to another stage of roofing. So my plan is to be in Tabora, especially after I think next June. Yeah, after completing the stage 1 of the project, I will be there, and I will spend most of my time there. Though still we have these projects in Maswa, but we have staff. So other people will remain in Maswa, but I will be in Tabora next year. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. I don't know if Rabina, if you wanted to say why you were asking the question about Tabora and what you're doing there.
Yes, Ezekiel, I've been working in Tabora for 3 years. I'm now back in England, but I'm a trustee of a charity for feeding stations for young children. And we've taken on the education of them. And we do have some young girls who are pregnant and have, done things that we would have wished they hadn't. But so we'd be very interested in information and support for those young, teenagers on the project that you're working. And furthermore, discussing any kind of way we could work together in other things.
Yeah, thank you. I think I'll need to have your contact because our project will be permanent. We are in the construction and it is specifically for teenage mothers. And Kelvin from TDT visited the place just last month. No, it was the beginning of this month. Just 3 weeks past, he managed to visit. It is about 8 kilometers from Tabora town, somewhere Kipalapala, if you know Kipalapala.
We know where.
Somewhere Kipalapala. So that is permanent. And
Ezekiel, if you can send me just a brief description, and I have your email address, where I will send the recording and the slides and everything to everybody who registered. So if it's okay to include your email in that, then people will have it.
My email, Janet?
I have your email. I'm saying I am going to send information to everybody who registered for this webinar, which will be the slides, the recording. It can be some information about your school and your email address, if that's okay with you.
Yeah, it's okay, Janet. Thank you.
Great. All right. Thank you. Okay, well, we're running out of time. So unless anybody has any urgent things that they want to say or any summing up comments, then I'll close the meeting.
And I just...
Can I comment, Janet?
Yes.
I am working in Marumba, one of the very successful programs that I have ever maybe supervising. Marumba is a unique program that TDT and the UK should feel proud of that. Because we have complete change, complete change. If you need to see complete change in a community, just go to Marumba. You'll realize that TDT and the UK, through that joint program, you have brought hope to that community that was locked community, that was marginalized community, vulnerable community. But now Marumba is opened, has been exposed, and the people are working so hard now because they feel connected with the other parts. So I would like to say thank you very much, TDT, as you are celebrating 45 years of working in the community. On their behalf, I say thank you very much for that. And I feel bad if I could not speak that today. So thank you, Janet, and thank you, everyone. Thank you, Julius Marcus.
Thank you. Okay, sorry, who else wanted to speak?
I'd like to speak last. So if anybody else will speak.
Was there anyone else?
Before you speak last, I'll say to you and to Janet and to our Tanzanian representatives, Hongereni na asanteni sana.
Thank you, Julia. I just want to say, as chair of BTS, sort of the organisations which started TDT, thank you for all that's been done for our most recent chairs that I've known, Julian, Jonathan, and now Janet. I know Janet has started enthusiastically, I think is the best description I can think of. She's certainly kept us busy, those of us who are still involved. Thank you, Janet. Jonathan did a tremendous job for 5 years, though he only signed up for 2. Julian, I'm not sure how many you signed up for, but you certainly did several while I was around. Thank you. Thank you all. And thank you everybody for joining in today and for showing your support to both our organisations and especially to TDT.
And I'd like to thank BTS as an